Hey everyone, so in this video I'm going to talk about this all loud with accents touch, and the intention is to help you to achieve great speed, accuracy, and control at the piano. And on this channel I hope to share with you strategies, thoughts, methods, insights, etc., often of my own creation, that hopefully will help you in your piano playing and possibly even other areas of your life as well. So first I'm going to talk about some context around this, also why we even want to do it in the first place, how it actually helps your piano playing. That will likely all be kind of mashed together in this first part of the video. And then after that, I will talk about how we actually go about doing it. How do we actually achieve that touch? What are the parameters? What are the exceptions? Like what's with the air quotes? Is it not, exactly all loud? So I'll talk about that and I'll illustrate with some examples and explanations, most likely. So first, in terms of the context, it is not as if I am the only person that practices loud with accents. And accents, they're really just stresses or suddenly loud notes. So instead of like da 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 da, maybe we go like da 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 da, right? So those are like accents, stresses, emphases, whatever you want to call them. However, I feel that I have a unique perspective in terms of my philosophy, pedagogy, ideas around this. This is just one component of my physical methodology, which is like my entire conception of technique. How do I teach myself fast or even virtuosic pieces? How do I teach them to my students? So there's a way that this concept interrelates with all of those other components. And I would say that I put particular importance on this type of touch as well too. Like for instance, there may be other methods or thinkings where let's say that you have a string of notes and instead of like da 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 da, you go like da 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 da, right? You have like different accents or something. That's actually not what I'm advocating. I think there are some that find it helpful to do lots of variations on this. You stress every other one, then you stress the opposite. You stress every three, or like maybe the first one is weaker and then you stress the second one. I'm actually advocating like a fairly straightforward accenting the beats and subdivisions type of touch. And I feel like this is maximally effective. So in terms of what importance I place on this touch I'm going to describe, I think that might be different from some opinions out there. And indeed, it is the way that I start practice of really any piece that would give me any sort of technical difficulty. I also use the metronome. I use metronome cycling, which I talked about in one of my other videos. I use altered rhythms and so on. So basically, this is like a default strategy that is used not just in any kind of difficult situation, but even in the initial learning stages. So I'd say that I place this touch in extremely high regard. And there are also quotation marks because the specific parameters, like it's not just that all of the notes are identically loud, as I'll talk about a little bit later in this video. So what I hope to share with you here is this unique perspective. Why do I place it in such high regard? Why don't I do other variations on accented practice and so on? And so that's some of the context. Eventually, just like the layering of strategy, another places on this channel, I talk about how, maybe we'll use like spaced repetition, adding in reverse, interleaving, and then we'll layer these different strategies because they're each independently powerful. And then layered together, they will, essentially each be independent multipliers. What I invite you to do is as you learn concepts from this video, maybe you watch the, my metronome cycling video, for instance, and you start to use those in tandem. Or maybe you watch like a video on lightning fast altered rhythms that I made, and then you start to use that in combination with these two other ones. So that's some of the unique power that you can start to achieve if you begin layering different aspects of my physical methodology. So then why do we want to go about learning this touch? I talked about in the title of this video, if I remember to title it correctly, great speed, accuracy, and control. So indeed, if you utilize this touch, it essentially, it makes everything more solid and grounded feeling so that you're not walking on eggshells. And because of that, I mean, I feel like almost every musical parameter is going to be helped, because we just do better when we feel, grounded at home, like our feet are on the ground. It's not that we're like afraid that things are going to get out of control any moment. So it is easier to rapidly acquire speed if you go about this in the right way, if you maintain the quality of this, like I said, this grounded, solid feeling touch as you get up to higher and higher speeds. So as you get up to higher speeds, like, you keep this overall control, and it'll be easier to play fast. In terms of accuracy, because in general things are not in danger of spiraling out of control, of course you'll play more correct notes, and it'll feel like a natural thing. It won't feel like you're throwing darts in the dark. And in terms of control, it's not really just about accuracy of notes, or even accuracy of notes at a high speed. And I just thought the title would be too long if I wrote other musical parameters. But if you do this touch correctly, I feel that it's the best touch on which to hang other types of touch. So if you do all loud with accents at a high speed, believe it or not, it's very easy to play very softly as well too. It's easy to play medium. It's easy to play, very, very soft if it's gone about in the right way in combination with other aspects of the physical methodology as well. And it's also possible to do a finger staccato. So, for example, let's say that I go... I'll probably talk about this a little bit more later, but if I'm doing this touch well, if I want to play connected, I can, but I can also play. So that's what I call a finger staccato, because my wrist and arm and everything are still mainly doing the same thing, but I can just create these little separations between the notes. So believe it or not, if you do this touch well, eventually that greatly helps your fingers to learn how to create those tiny little minuscule separations. And because you're stressing the beats and subdivisions, and for the purpose of the video, I'll just say that they are the important points in the music where we feel like grounded and good and sane and all that. So if you feel these, it usually makes it such that you won't easily rush or drag. You won't like speed up or slow down as much. It forces you to pay much more attention to whether you're matched up with the metronome if you're using it, because every time you emphasize, you're feeling it internally as well too. And so then you're especially sensitive to if you match up with the metronome, which is going to be a constant pulse that doesn't waver in terms of speed. And even if you're doing it without the metronome, it forces you to feel those pulses more distinctly. It also will make your hands play more together, because when you're accenting both of the hands, you will start to notice like, oh yeah, both of the hands are matching up right here. Both of the hands are matching up right here. And you might not notice that had you not done these accents. And it's not even only about intellectually noticing these things. It's also about just physically feeling every single time that the hands match up. Or if not every single time that they match up, many of the important areas where they happen to align. So basically, like, the hands end up playing more exactly together. They end up playing more evenly. Your tempo rhythm, everything ends up more solid overall. And yeah, so like I said, there's hardly a musical parameter that isn't positively affected by all of this. And I'll also mention in a little bit, it also helps voicing as well too. And here, when I say voicing, I basically mean like if there's a simultaneity, like if you're playing, let's say, 3 notes at the same time. When I say that we want to voice this chord, we want to have one of those notes be more important than the other 2. And a lot of the time, by default, we'll voice the tops of chords. So if we play the top note louder than the other two, this all loud with accents touch will actually help us to do this, even if in the end the chord overall is softer. So anyway, the short version is that it just helps many, many different musical parameters. And I think I've already started leading into the next topic, which is just how exactly to go about doing this. So I've already talked about some parameters in the course of this explanation anyway. So I think I'll say the first thing is some students, they will have trouble playing all out with accents. Like the accents, they might be harder to understand at first. So especially if you're beginner to intermediate, especially beginner, maybe don't try to do the accents first. I would just try to play all loud first. And the all loud is in quotes, not only because there are some other parameters and exceptions, but also because I feel it serves as a reminder to not just press or force really hard. We never want to play with physical strength, right? We don't want to create like a nasty sound. And I'd say one good way of telling whether or not you are creating a at least decent sound would be playing on the, like if you close the lid of the piano or you play on a tabletop, does that create like this dreadful impact sound? Or, here I'm imagining I'm playing loud, but it doesn't create that horrible impact. Or you imagine that this is like somebody's arm, like your friend or family member's arm. Would they yell out in pain if you played loud there, or would it be fine and they would just be like, wow, your arms are very heavy, right? And we're achieving this by relaxing all of the weight and everything here. So in this video, I will not go into more specifics than this in terms of technique, but when we say loud, we don't mean this. We mean a nice, healthy, and believe it or not, this it seemed like it had almost no impact on the lid of the piano. So when we say loud, we mean a good, healthy, relaxed loud with good technique. And like I said, so this video doesn't go on for like 2 hours. Let's just say that you should be as relaxed as possible. I talk about holding and relaxing sometimes in other videos. So if you play this, if your fingers are tense or something, well, relax them, relax your wrists, relax your arms, relax your elbows. See if you feel nice and heavy and relaxed here. And that's the type of loud that we're talking about, right? And so if I use Chopin Etude Opus 10 No. 4 as an example, let's say that we just do this all loud, no pedal, don't try to be musical, don't try to play right above left hand, don't try to have beautiful crescendos and decrescendos. It's just a normal loud. I should do slower. So this would be like pretty much just like all loud, right? Everything's just identically loud, more or less. So let's add in some of the other parameters. So the first thing I would say is, if you're a beginner, this is probably good already. The general idea is that you want to play with this nice, solid, grounded feeling, like I said many times throughout this video. And if it's faster than this, you can use the metronome to gradually increase the speed. Or not, you could just, without the metronome, play medium and then medium fast and then fast and so on. And if you're playing nice and weighty and relaxed, it'll actually be easier for you to play softer and use other touches later. Like for instance, if I can play like, it'll actually be easier for me to go if I stay just as relaxed, as opposed to like try to very carefully play soft, in which case a lot of the notes won't even come out, right? So even just not talking about the other parameters of this type of touch, that could be useful. But if you can manage it, in order to incorporate the accents, I would say a lot of the time we'll end up accenting every other note. So if we look at the music here, and I do not recommend playing this if you are a beginner, but nevertheless, I chose to use this as an example. So this is just like a continuous stream of 16th notes. And in this case, for the accents, we won't just accent the quarter note pulse. We're going to accent the 8th note pulse, which really is just every other note. So we'll go like da da dee da da dum dee da 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 dee da 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 dee da 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 dee da da. Right, so that'll be our default. Let's say, for instance, whoops, this is opus 10 number 1, which I've had in a lot of YouTube shorts and so on. So like it would be like bum ba dee da dun da dee da dun da dee da dun da dee da 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 dee da 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 dee da da, right? So it would accent every other note: the first note, the third note, the fifth note, the seventh note, the ninth note, etc. Sometimes this is the same, opus 10 number 8. Da da dee da dee da dee da dee da dee da da, right? So it's still just every other note, but sometimes there will be, like for instance here, opus 10 number 5. You can see that clearly these are in groups of 3, right? Da 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 dee da da dee da da dee da da dee da 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 dee da da da. So I would say by default, accent every other note the way that I was describing, like this. Right, and I'm still playing all loud overall, but on top of that, I am emphasizing, if I were playing opus 10 number 5, the one where there's like every 3 notes, oops, yeah, so something like that. Right, so there it's every 3 notes or so, and then opus 10 number 1. Okay, so part of the idea is, as it gets faster, like let's say I'm playing, opus 10 number 4 again. You can still hear the accents, but as it gets faster, it might be harder to perceive, but I'm still feeling them. You might start to eventually feel every 4 notes instead of 2. I'm still aware of the accents, even as it kind of starts to blend together just because it's so quick. Right, so as it gets faster, the feeling of accenting every 2 notes, it starts to become a little bit more indistinct, at least to the listener, but I still feel the impulses inside. And then it might be that I'm feeling every 4 notes. It might sound like just all loud, but I'm still aware of the accents myself as the pianist, as the person that's literally playing. And again, if I'm able to preserve the quality of this touch up to the higher speeds, and that's a challenge for most, so there's more to it than just this, but then I should be able to, right, I should be able to play softly as well, because I've gotten myself grounded and weighty into the keys. And in case you're wondering, like, well, how can you get up all those different metronome speeds, or how can you, achieve those softs if you're still having trouble with it? That's when I would suggest starting to look at other videos on this channel, such as lightning fast altered rhythms, metronome cycling, and other parts of the physical methodology. And also other parts of the logical methodology, because the physical one is not siloed from the logical methodology either. It might be, it's definitely going to be that you want to practice very tiny sections, that you want to practice separate hands, that you want to use adding and reverse and all the other techniques that I talked about. Anyway, so in terms of other reasons why there's quotes around all loud, all chords should be voiced. So like I was saying earlier, if you have any kind of simultaneity, including an octave, let's say I'm playing 2 notes, right? So I'll show this way. Let's say I'm playing this note and this note at the same time. So instead of playing them like both like that, and that would be pressed anyway, I'm going to play this note nice and loud, and this note I'm going to play nice and soft. You can practice this by playing the top note nice and loud and the bottom note silent, like this. And then eventually you can have this make the tiniest amount of sound. Right? So that's how I would go about practicing voicing. And every single simultaneity should be voiced. So it's like you have two notes together here in the right hand. Well, the top note should be more than that note. Two notes together here, the top note should be more than that note. Sometimes you can voice other notes, like you can voice the bottoms or you can voice the middles, but the default I'd say in piano playing is that you're voicing the tops of many chords. So here we have two notes here, and I'm, instead of playing them like, I'm going to play this note more than this one. Yeah, and I know, hopefully you're impressed with my camera work as I hold this in the other hand. Right, so even within the all-out touch, I am making sure to voice all of the chords. It turns out that it's not helpful to play them all identically. I tried it before in my early 20s, and it didn't produce as good a result as just making an exception. Right, so make sure all of your chords are voiced. I'm just going to show that briefly. Well, I guess I already showed it, but I can show it with both hands. So while I'm playing with the right hand, my left hand, sorry, yeah, okay. I'm still playing the tops of these chords more than the bottoms of these simultaneous chords or dyads. Again, if this is hard for you, and even for intermediate students, this might be hard. That's okay. Just try your best to start introducing voicing little by little if and when you feel ready. And then one of the other most important exceptions is releasing at the ends of slurs. Now, this is a virtuosic piece, obviously. So actually, when you see things like this, where you see like these little slurred passages, it might not be nearly as obvious as, for instance, here. This is a two-note slur, this is a two-note slur. So instead of playing, sorry, let's see. Right, pressed down, and you're playing the second note of each one too loud as well. You should play. So this is an exception, another exception to the all loud. Even though we're playing all loud, we're still playing the last note of each of these two-note slurs very softly. This one's soft. This one's still all loud. This one's soft. This one's still all loud. Sorry. And this one's soft. Yeah. Or like Beethoven's Tempest Sonata, right, that passage in the beginning of the first movement. If you were doing this all loud, you would play. Right, so even in this context, even with the all loud with accents parameters, we still want to continue to voice all chords. We still want to play with a good, healthy, relaxed technique, never pressed or forced. And we want to release the ends of all slurs. So the reality is that in a voiced chord, like anytime you're playing, for instance, three notes at once, two notes at once, or whatever, they're not actually all loud, which is partially why it's in quotes, the term. Everything except for the voiced note, for the loud note, they will actually be very soft, or I think they should be very soft. And such it is with the ends of slurs as well, whether it's the end of a two-note slur or it's the end of a really long slur or phrase marking. That last note, you will play it very quietly, even within this touch. And so there are certain textures, and textures just kind of like the density of the notes, or how many notes are on the page, like is it a melody and accompaniment, or is it that there's lots of chords or whatever. So there are certain textures, certain types of music where you'll find that there's a lot of exceptions to all loud. Like there's a lot of slurs, or there's a lot of chords, and then the quotes around all loud actually seem to make a great deal of sense, because there are so many notes that you're actually not playing loud. And anyway, so overall, this in combination with my metronome cycling idea, it honestly makes up the majority of my practice of many of my pieces. And that might be a shocker. I mean, be like, David, aren't you supposed to play musically? The playing musically, a lot of it seems to come of its own accord if I physically have everything in place. And then I have my logistical methodology in terms of planning all of the fingering, planning the musical detail, crescendos, decrescendos, etc. And of course, I have mental practice where I'm practicing in my mind. So anyway, so this video, even if it seems a little meandering, I purposely wanted to talk about this topic, but also give you guys a glance at how I'm thinking. And it's kind of systems thinking in a way, that you have different components within a system, such as the physical methodology that I've been talking about. And this is one of them, this all out with accents touch. And they interrelate with each other in a certain way, metronome cycling and other stuff. And then that's my physical methodology. But even this methodology, it will relate to like my logical methodology, it'll relate to mental practice, etc., in a sophisticated way. And I didn't set out to purposely make things complicated. It is just the most efficient, most effective way that I have found to practice, which is why I practice that way myself, and I gradually teach these layers to all of my students. So anyway, hopefully you found that interesting, valuable. If so, please like, subscribe, let people know about the channel, and looking forward to the next one.